What to do when combining finances? It gets really complicated. Finances are complicated enough when you're trying to figure them out by yourself, but when you start adding in other people, other dependents, other um, people in your life that you want to start having combined finances with, it can really complicate things very, very quickly. I like to break things up into at least two categories right off the bat. The first one's going to be whether or not you're legally married or not. Uh, this can just bring in a lot more complications if you start to combine things when you're not legally married. You really don't want to bring into question things that can be brought up potentially in court. If you have any issues or any fallouts, it's just really not worth the hassle. The potential gain is not really there. Yes, you can simplify some things and maybe set up some automatic transactions, but realistically, think the best guidance is just to avoid it. There are so many cases of people having relationships that go bad. Somebody drains an account and leaves. Somebody runs up a big debt bill and now both names are on it, co-signing for loans or leases. All those things can just be brought into question or run into issues if that relationship were to ever go bad. And I don't want to be pessimistic. I think I should be optimistic, and I am, that things can be and will be turning out well. But there's some pretty standard protections that I think are in place when you keep your accounts separate until you're actually legally married, where there's more federal bindings with that as well. So if you do want to go about things and keep things separate, well, what kind of options are there? Because obviously there's going to be a lot of crossover expenses. Luckily, we have a lot of applications now that make sending and receiving money honestly seamlessly between Venmo, Zelle, Cash App, Apple Pay. There's so many decent options now to split checks, split bills, send money back and forth almost instantly. And that can be a great option to start out with. If you really want to get into something more formal, you can keep your own separate accounts for the majority of your spending, and where your income comes in, definitely keep that separate. And then you can open up a joint account where only a minimal amount goes in. Maybe it's a vacation savings fund or it's a rent payment fund, things like that, where you're already incurring both are incurring costs on that. And there's some other type of contract that goes with it. But I would be very hesitant to combine or to set up any automatic transactions direct from your employers, like your W-2 income or your normal biweekly paychecks. Once you figured out the more formal aspect of it, of how to actually save your money into which accounts, how to send money back and forth, a lot of times it comes up like, well, how do we split expenses? Especially when you're not married, I think there's a little bit more of a transaction there, because it's not really our money, it's your money and my money, and then there's some overlap in transactions. And I think having some joint savings opportunities is really a good idea. There's going to be larger purchases that I think are worth splitting, and I think one of the best ways to go about this is going to be proportional payments. Somebody makes substantially more than the other person, then you can split these and say, if somebody makes 100,000 and the other person makes 50,000 a year, then one person pays 2/3 and the other person pays 1/3. And that way one person isn't overly burdened by expenses and opportunities. And it also creates, I guess for better words, is equal pain in both people. If one person makes more money, they may be more apt to go out to dinners or restaurants when the other person just simply can't afford it, or that hurts a lot more and is a lot harder to afford. Where if you do a proportional budget, then both people feel similar costs to their money lines. For simplicity's sake, a lot of people do choose to just go 50-50, which is a fine option. It's not one that I would directly recommend, but hey, it's better than nothing. It's better to have some type of an agreement or understanding in place so one person doesn't feel obligated or have expenses become an issue for the relationship. But if you do go 50-50, just be cautious, because eventually there may be a boiling point to where expenses keep getting higher and higher, or trips get more and more costly or more frequent. And one person usually the person who makes slightly less starts to feel overburdened, or they feel guilty if they're holding somebody back. And realistically, you don't want that to become a stress on the relationship when it really doesn't need to be. Unfortunately, it's usually just a lack of communication where one person is starting to feel more stressed by their finances, and that's not being communicated to the other person. And the other person is probably just going about their normal expectations, or continuing with their fun and wanting to do more and more as you do cool experiences in the relationship. But realistically, it can start causing that divide, or a little bit of anger or guilt that starts boiling up if it's not talked about. Now, on the other side, if you are married, now it becomes a fairly significant different story. There's a lot more tying you together. There's legal bindings that come with that. And I would really recommend looking at some type of joint accounts for this situation. One, for transparency. I think that it is important for both people to know how much money is coming in for the household and how much money is going out, where it's being spent. I think that having those blind spots, especially in a marriage, is supposed to be fully transparent. And if somebody feels that they need to hold something back or they're not comfortable sharing something, I think that shows that there's a lack of communication there that the relationship is really needs to build, potentially through counseling. It's totally a valid option to have some type of an intermediator bring up those conversations and to help structure talking about those feelings and where they're coming from. But it could also just be a simple conversation about where you want to spend your money, how you want to spend your money, and also how much money is coming in as well. And the good part is, if you do go with a combined budget for the marriage or for the relationship, is that you can realistically treat it as a single budget and how somebody would plan for that. I like the idea of having multiple sinking funds. You have a normal checking account that you can have a lot of your transactions, debit cards come in and out of. And then you have sinking funds for some of those larger purchases that you know are going to come up. Potentially emergency fund, a travel fund, car repair or replacement funds, things like that are going to be fantastic to just set up a couple accounts, have a direct deposit come into your main checking, and then the day after or even the same day have it dispersed into those various accounts. It makes it a lot easier to know how much money you actually have to spend. And then when those other larger expenses do come up, you already have a large portion of it covered, if not all of it, from a different account. It helps eliminate any type of stress, and it really helps to make sure both people are on the same page with how they want to save their money and structure their future. If both people have that type of understanding, there's an unwritten or an unspoken communication that comes with it, that we have decided what our goals are going to be, and we are on the same page, and it can really strengthen where both people are. With that said, it's important across both of them, whether you join your finances or you keep them separate. It's just to understand where you're vulnerable. If you are not legally married or there's no legal contracts, prenups and things like that, postnups, something that's written down that can be used in a legal situation. If those things are not in place, then just understand that when you sign for things, you are fully committing to be on the payments for that. If somebody co-signs for a lease and leaves, you may end up being taken to court and or on the hook for those payments. So be extremely cautious in those situations. Make sure to protect yourself. And then also going along with that is, when it comes to relationships, just keep that communication pipeline open. If people are more apt to talk about their finances, fantastic. I would say have those conversations as frequently as possible. It will help bring up where people want to spend their money, how much they're bringing in, and what kind of brings that sense of security when it comes to finances. And it really helps two people bond and can make for a great relationship. So that strength and communication is going to play wonders, especially in the finance realm. So if you really want to simplify this and see all of your finances in one place, check out simplefinances.co. It's a platform that allows you to link all of your accounts. You can do it in under 5 minutes and get instant reports on where you're at, how you're doing, and what the next step should be. If you are combining your accounts or you just want to see where everybody is at in a household or a relationship, you can do that. You can have each person load their accounts. It'll sync transactions automatically and give you a full review. It's honestly a seamless transition, and it takes away all the burden from having to look across multiple apps, multiple websites, different logins. It does it all for you, which is fantastic. So simplify your finances, take away the burden of checking things daily or weekly, and give it a look. Simplefinances.co.